Hi, everybody. Welcome to the May Customer Success webinar for OnBoard, all about customer feedback, a critical ingredient to the recipe for new product features. I'm Jillian Walker, Customer Success Manager with the OnBoard team, and I'm joined today by Doug Wilson, our Vice President of Product, and Mick Cobb, our Vice President of Engineering. We are also joined today by Customer Success Manager Gabe Smith, who will be moderating our Q&A and chat. So let's get started. After a little housekeeping, we're going to hit on what product planning entails, how an idea can percolate to the top, a little peek into what's coming down the road for OnBoard, and then some time for you to ask some questions. So, housekeeping. All attendees' mics should be muted. Please stay that way. If you have any questions throughout or any issues at all, please use the Q&A function or the chat function, or feel free to raise your hand and Gabe will reach out directly. So we want to make sure that you walk away, that we cover some goals for today and you walk away with some learnings. So 3 pieces really of knowledge we want you to walk away with. That your ideas are valuable to the process and how that process works, how to share those ideas, and lastly, that you have some insight into what is coming down the road, a little bit of a sneak peek for OnBoard. Doug, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, Jillian, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I've never done a webinar from my house, so this is an interesting experience. What we want to do is, I'm going to start with a quote here on the left: the prioritization of anything complex must be a collaborative process. And I think this is so true. And that's a little bit about sort of what we want to kind of frame today is, you know, as an organization, how do we think about prioritization of ideas and sort of where do those ideas come from and what's the framework we use? I'm not trying to turn you into product managers, but I do think it's helpful to sort of set a context and maybe sort of even set expectations as you're working with your CS team on how we process through the ideas that you send to us. So the prioritization piece has to be collaborative, no question about that, and that's what we're going to talk about a bit today.
Hey everyone, this is Mick. I'll second what Doug's mentioning here. The collaboration process especially between product and engineering, from something that becomes an idea to the time it's built, really important to us, and I think it's part of what's helped us deliver so much in the past. And so we'll see more about that, what's called discovery and delivery, in the slides coming up.
Yeah. So you know, the first thing I'll highlight is that the visualization there is to sort of give you an idea of how we get ideas. We had over 700 ideas from you, from all of our customers over the last 12 months. So obviously way more ideas than we could possibly sort of act on in that same period of time. And so we have to take those ideas and then sort of put them through a funnel to make decisions on what are the things we're going to work on and what are the things that we just, you know, can't work on or maybe don't really align with the direction that we're going. So we do get a lot of great ideas. Sometimes an idea might be very specific to an organization and doesn't really align with our product vision or our company objectives. And then other times we get a lot of great ideas and we can't act on them right then. And so that's one point that I wanted to make was, you know, you as a customer, you might have made a suggestion, for example, boy, we'd love to see a meeting minute solution. And you know, maybe made that suggestion a year ago and still haven't seen anything from it. That will happen because of the number of ideas that we get. But the thing I want to highlight there is, and you'll see this as we walk through the process, when we do prioritize meeting minutes, one of the very first steps we take is we go back and look at, one, sort of how many customers have said they're interested in this, and 2, what specifically did they say they're interested in? And so even if it has been a year and maybe you've been a little bit frustrated by that, for example, I just wanted to give you some context for it still is valuable, and we do log all of those and we go back to those as a starting point to make decisions on priorities. So what I want to do over the next few minutes is first just establish sort of a foundation of what is the process, and sort of help align. You know, we sort of think of you as partners, help us align as partners on our expectations around ideas as you're working with the CS team. And then walk a little bit through our process and sort of the timing considerations of that. And like I said, bear with me. I don't want to go too much into product management, but I do want to sort of set a foundation. And then we're going to hop over into a real life example, how we worked through the upcoming task management functionality. And that'll be, we'll sort of use a game, sort of board game idea for that. And then finally, Mick and I are going to sort of share a little bit about what's coming next, and then a little bit of our kind of longer term vision as a company. So with that, let me move ahead. So the first piece is we do have a lot of planning inputs. And so inputs on the left, kind of examples of what those things are on the right. First, it's company strategy. And so, for example, with company strategy, maybe we've decided as an organization that it's important for us to move into a new geography, and that geography might require additional language support that we don't have today. And so we would build out the additional language support to support company strategy in that case. Sometimes it'll be, you know, market opportunity and demands. You know, unfortunately, with the COVID crisis that we're all in right now, everyone's forced to work from home. And so as an organization, we immediately look to see how well do we support and how optimized are we for supporting virtual meetings, because we're all forced to have virtual meetings now. And so as you've probably seen, we just recently launched a Zoom integration. And that was specifically because of the market demand that we saw, and making sure that we were responding to that in the appropriate way. A lot of times, it's going to be, you know, direct customer feedback that we're getting from you that we just talked about, and that's often coming through your connection with your customer success manager. And you know, the example that I mentioned there was we've heard that customers would like a meeting minute solution, and so those are things that register with us, and then we take that information to make decisions on what we're going to do next. So let's take a minute, since we're talking about meeting minute solution, and we want this to be an interactive session. So we do have a few polls we've set up. So we're going to launch a poll, but basically we want to know, are you interested in a meeting management solution? And so we'd love for you, we'll give you a minute or so to take a quick look at this and respond. And this will be super helpful as we kind of process through the conversation today. And this will be, as you're kind of progressing through that, this will be, you know, both how do you create meeting minutes, and then how do you manage that process? Sometimes it may be that you've put the minutes together and you need to run those by the secretary before they get sent out to the rest of the board for approval. So that whole process is sort of what we're talking about here when I say how do you manage meeting minutes today. Jillian, how are we doing on time? In terms of the poll, do we want to?
Yeah, I think we're good. Let's give it about 5 more seconds and see if anyone else wants to vote. We've got about 61% of people have voted, so we're pretty close.
Fantastic.
All right.
All right, so you are interested in how to manage meeting minutes. That's great. And let's see, yes, I'd be interested in participating in a 30-minute session. Awesome, that's super helpful. And some of you may, you know, from time to time, your CSM will reach out to you and ask specifically, hey, would you be interested in talking about a specific topic that our product team's working on? So this is super helpful. We'll look forward to reaching out to the folks that said they're interested in connecting. So next on the list then is industry innovation. And you know, these are things that may be happening in our space specifically, but we're also looking at other industries and what are other industries doing that apply to our space. So an example of that would be engagement analytics that we launched sort of late last year. I'll talk a little bit about that more in a little bit here, but engagement analytics was sort of looking at what are other industries doing? I come from the MarTech space previously, and you know, marketing technology has obviously used a lot of engagement analytics to help understand how consumers are engaging with you know, different marketing channels. And we thought we think there's a correlation there in terms of what we do, and making sure that you know, executives, board chairs, people responsible for meetings have an understanding of sort of how well their team members are engaged, and where they're most engaged, where they're less engaged, where questions might pop up. And so that's why we looked at that one in particular. That was looking at industry innovation in other spaces. And then also sales feedback is obviously super important. And so one of the things that has popped up just recently is getting a lot of feedback from the sales team that people are asking about a way to create and track tasks, so a task management solution. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time sort of walking through an example of how we have managed that process as we've been building out a task management solution. And then finally is technology advances. And I'll let Mick talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So, so some of the more interesting tech advances for myself and the engineering team have been around cognitive computing, and most of that is AI, machine learning related, which we've all heard these statements. But just to tie it to something more tangible, I'll go back to Doug mentioning the Zoom conference. You know, we're looking at how technology can help us with building or consuming a book. Now that we can host the meeting, there have been technology advances where we can translate that audio into something highly accurate. And once we get it into text, now there's AI code that can help us comprehend what happened in the meeting. It's very interesting stuff. Help identify speakers, help identify the sentiment, potentially understand commands like add agenda item, all kinds of things like this that are possible. And so right now the engineering team is taking a look at those things, and we're trying to look ahead and figure out what can we do with them to actually enhance the board experience. And so more to come there, but there's a lot in the tech area today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mick.
Yep.
So those are the inputs. Those are all the things that are coming in that we have to sort of process through and decide what is the most important for us to move forward on as an organization. And so this next step is, what is the prioritization process, and how does that really translate into you know, a roadmap? How does that translate into the sort of the list of things that we've decided are the most important? And so first is looking at our previous plans. You know, looking back, what did we say we were going to do a year ago? What did we say we were going to do 6 months ago? What did we say we were going to do 3 months ago? And you know, what's changed? Are we making the right decisions there? And that's important because, as you know, and this has probably happened to you. You know, sometimes we'll have a plan right now that we might be talking to our whole team about, and all the customer success managers, and we may be saying, hey, we think we're going to build X in Q3, and things change. And so you know, that might get communicated to you, and you think it's coming, and then we've sort of changed course. And that is sort of the reality of what we do. But we also we want to make sure that we are going back and looking at those previous plans, and if we are making a pivot, that we're doing as good job as we can to communicate those. Then we look at obviously just sort of company and overall product objectives. So when we do our annual planning sessions or quarterly planning sessions as an organization, we want to look at what we've said is important for the organization and how does that align. We're looking at things like you know, changes in society and technology shifts. How will that impact things? And then what we'll do as part of the prioritization is we'll reach out to the functional team. So we'll reach out to the sales team and we'll say, what are you hearing in the market? You know, kind of feet on the ground. What are you hearing is important in the sales cycle? And we'll do the same with the customer success team. What are you hearing from customers right now? What are their pain points? What are things that they'd like to see us improve, or maybe what are things that they would like us to build that would be net new functionality? And then an important piece there is, you know, we might think an idea is the right thing to act on. And this is, again, where it's important that we kind of bring this back to your ideas. a lot of times we'll go back then and look at the idea backlog, and if we looked at something and we really didn't have any customer requests for that, that's sort of a sign for us that it's not that important. And so we do make sort of a judgment call there based on, yeah, lots of customers have asked for this thing over the last 6 months or a year. Great. That's helpful for prioritization. It's also helpful because then we can reach back out to you and say, hey, we're getting ready to work on this thing. And from a product perspective, would you be interested in talking to us about that so we can better understand it? And then finally, the size of the idea is really important. So, the way that I think about this is, if something's too big, we might be able to get one thing done in 3 months, or we could do 3 things in 3 months. And so a lot of times what we're trying to do is sort of take these ideas and break them down into small enough components that we can work on them and turn those around pretty quickly so that we're giving you new technology and new innovation on a pretty regular basis. And so the size of it does have an implication on our planning process for that reason. So those are 2 big things we've covered: all the inputs of ideas, and then how do we then take all those ideas and start to put those into a roadmap and kind of funnel those down into what we're actually going to work on. So next we're going to transition over into sort of some examples of specifically how we created the task solution. So real life example, we've just built a task management solution that's going to roll out in a couple weeks. You're the first customers to really hear about it, and you'll be the first customers to see it as well. And we did this in the form of a game. We just thought it'd be kind of fun. So this is sort of our version of Chutes and Ladders, or Candyland, if you will. And we'll sort of walk through what that looks like as we're processing through. So kind of upper left is where we start, lower right's where we finish. The yellow circles are places where we have direct connection with you, with our customers, to ask for more information, to ask for feedback, to review designs, etc. Sometimes it's participating in a beta program. And then this is a little more interesting, and this is where sort of it starts to get a little bit more complicated. The red lines here are identifying places where we've sort of got to a point and sort of need to go backwards, and the blue lines are places where we can sort of skip ahead. So I'll just highlight a couple here. One is if you're going across the top, we get to outline possible solutions. Well, if we're able to look at customer requests and get a lot of detail there, maybe we have some internal team members that have some expertise in an area, we might skip the kind of first curve, if you will, on the right. We might skip the established communication with customers and collect customer feedback, because we feel like we've already got that detail from the requests we've gotten, and we might drop that right into design. So it saves us a little bit of time. But at the same time, we might get it into design, and the design team says, I don't really understand what the problem is we're trying to solve. And so then we need to go back and sort of rework the problem definition piece there. So that's just an example of sort of how this process actually plays out. And from sort of start to finish, I would say in a lot of cases, that process is probably taking somewhere, we'll fast track some things from time to time, like we did with the Zoom integration, but that process is typically taking somewhere between 6 to probably 12 weeks, I would say, sometimes even more. But generally speaking, probably 6 to 12 weeks to sort of process items through the list. So what I want to do now is actually take tasks and we'll just walk through, and I'll show you some kind of artifacts of that to kind of bring this to life. So the first one is, prioritizing that specific idea. And so the box here that you're seeing is one of the columns in the roadmap that we maintain internally. And we have sort of our current column. Those are the things the team's actually working on. And then when I grabbed this off of the roadmap, it was from a few months ago. Task management showed up in that next column. So you can see book build improvements was one, analytics, a meeting brief email that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, and then task management showed up next. So that's sort of where that started. And then next, once we've said that that's a priority, then we go and look for what have customers asked for. And so this is literally out of a a spreadsheet from a customer where you can tell they were being pretty specific on what they were looking for around what they called action tasks and some of the functionality they wanted there. So we go through that list and kind of process that. And that's where our ideas come from to start to outline what that solution might look like. Then we work our way down and we begin the design process. And the artifacts here are the black screen is, the designer have to literally design out every single experience or interaction that you're going to have with the product. So they start with, just lots of screens, and every click of the button, every choice that you can make in the screen, we have to work through that process and iterate through that. And then the one that's sort of hidden behind that is a little bit higher resolution. We'd made more progress there, and we started to actually put some things around the screens that we actually wanted to use. And then the last one here is, we get to we've turned this over to engineering, to Mick's team. The developers are working through sort of the hard technical work. And now, while they're doing that, we start to plug in on the marketing side of things. So how are we going to communicate this to our customers? Why did we work on it? What problems is it solving? How is our sales team going to talk about it? How do we make sure that our customer success team knows how to talk about it and talk about the benefits of it with our customers, and make sure that our customers know how to use it? So those are just, again, sort of a way to bring that to life. That's kind of what that process looks like. And then so where are we today? As I mentioned, we're getting ready to roll out tasks, and we're preparing for a release. So we elected not to do a beta for tasks. We feel really good about it. We've gotten some really good feedback. And so we're literally in the stage of preparing for a release in a couple of weeks. On that note, we're going to jump into another poll real quick, and we'd love to know, how is your team currently managing tasks? So we'll give you about a minute to respond to that. And by the way, on any of these polls, if you sort of are left with, wow, I wish I could have typed something in, obviously reach out to your customer success manager. We'd love to get any additional feedback, or throw something in to the chat window here if you have a specific comment or question, and we can tackle those things. But how are you managing tasks today? And we'll sort of use this as a little bit of a guide in terms of some of our kind of final messaging. And then what I want to do, as we'll give maybe another 15 seconds on this, and then what I want to do is sort of unveil tasks for the very first time. So you'll see what it's going to look like. You're the first customers to see it, and it'll roll out in a couple weeks in production. So it looks like we've got a lot of feedback here. Thanks so much. 38 votes, I think, roughly. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for taking a look at that. So introducing OnBoard Tasks. Maybe. Sorry.
So did it freeze? There we go.
There we go. So OnBoard Tasks. So first thing you'll notice is, I should have highlighted this, but over on the left, we have a new navigation item for tasks, and we have this kind of right panel that will pop out. That'll be the default view. So it's a little bit different than our other navigation, where you're typically taken to a full screen. But the reason for that is we think there are use cases where you may want to be in Actions and be able to create a task. You may want to be in the board book and create a task. You may want to be in building the agenda and create a task. So this gives you more utility to be able to do that. And this will be the default view. It's pre-filtered to the things that are assigned to you, and you can see those items and in different states. And there we go. When you create a task, this is a quick view of what that would look like. So you have the ability to put in a due date, put in a description. You can identify if it's in progress, set a priority. It can be assigned. And you can also set viewers. So people that it's not specifically assigned to, but people that you want to be able to have visibility to that task. I'm literally just clicking buttons. I have no idea how to progress these screens, but it seems like if I click the buttons enough, it works. So bear with me here. So then this is sort of we've created a screen that has some predefined filters. So as I mentioned, we start with assigned to me as the default, but you can pop in here then and click on assign to others. Those would be the things that you're a viewer on, but are not assigned to you. You can see items that have been, tasks that have been completed, due today, due this week, etc. And then we also give you some filters around maybe a group you're in has been assigned a task, or a task is been associated to a meeting specifically. All of those are part of the predefined work that we've done here. And then at the bottom, you'll notice there's an open and full screen mode. And then here's the full screen mode. So it just gives you a little bit more real estate. Things are a little bit bigger, but you can still sort of take all the same actions from here. You can create a new task, etc. So that's tasks. We hope you're excited about it. Reach out to your customer success manager if you have questions. This will be rolling out in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. So we're still doing sort of internal enablement, that sort of thing. So they may not have answers to all your questions, even though I just told you to contact them. And Jillian's probably not going to be happy about that. But we'd love to hear your feedback, questions. A couple of weeks, this will be available. All right, so thank you for your patience. That was kind of working through the foundation piece that I mentioned. Now we want to talk about sort of what's coming next. And I'm gonna let Mick talk about something we've got in progress. And then I'm gonna highlight a few things that are coming up next. And to give you a heads up, I'm gonna give you a brief description of what's next. And then we're actually gonna pop up a poll. And we would like for you, out of that list of 5 things, to identify what you would prioritize first and second. So what would be your first 2 choices out of those 5 things? And again, if you feel like, hey, I'd love for there to be another thing on that list, pop that into the chat so we can capture that. So Mick, you want to talk a little bit about what we've got in progress right now?
Yep, thanks, Doug. So let me address these 2 sort of last one first. So the engineering team's pretty excited about this. Modernization for us means we take some of the important libraries that we use to build the web, and we make sure that they're current. And that's important for 2 reasons, mainly for 2 benefits that you'll see by us doing this. First of all, we support more browsers this way, and we support them better. And so sometimes we find that certain browsers work better than others. By being current here, we're going to be better and sort of more consistent across browsers. And so that's a big win. The second thing is generally speed. As libraries start to age and code doesn't run as efficiently as it used to in the newer browsers, it generally slows down. And so one of the things we enjoy is just that snappier click stream back and forth. And I think even though that's not a feature itself, it is a usability thing that people tend to appreciate. And so some of those things we'll see in the modernization. Also, while we're modernizing the website, we're going to improve our accessibility. And so what that means is for people that may have an impairment, visually impaired, for example, there are a set of standards put out by the W3 consortium that say, build your web pages in this sort of way, use colors in this sort of scheme, use tab orders on your fields so that people who use screen readers can read them. They have a set of standards, and they say if you comply with that, then you have an accessibility. And so we have the chance to go through and make some very small adjustments, but meaningful, so that people with those impairments will be able to better use our site. We think that's important because we've looked at some of the competition in our space, and we don't see anyone doing that today. And we know that for certain customers, it's very important. So through the modernization, we're also going to address the accessibility, and that's sort of next on the plate for the engineering team.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mick.
Yep.
So up next, this is literally your chance to sort of give us your feedback, help us decide what should be next. This is sort of our short list, if you will. and I'm going to give just really brief descriptions. We've already talked about the meeting minute builder, but again, that will be sort of creating, managing, storing meeting minutes. So think of it as sort of a more comprehensive solution, not just a place to take notes. A better meeting scheduling. So as we think about sort of forward planning, one of the things that we've heard is people would like a doodle-like option. And if you're not familiar with Doodle, it's a nice way of being able to sort of poll a group of people and find out their availability. We think we can do a better job of that than Doodle has, and we can build it inside of OnBoard and give you a really nice way of, it could be planning out the next meeting, it could be planning out the next several months of meetings, but we can improve that process. Salesforce integration is something that pops up. We don't have a lot of detail around this one. So this is one that if you say, I'm interested in Salesforce integration, we'd love to reach out and talk to you more about it. But this could be something like, maybe you have a dashboard in Salesforce that you'd really like for that to just to show up inside of OnBoard, so that when you're in OnBoard or in a meeting, it's really easy to make that accessible. And then additional engagement analytics. We did roll that out late in the year. We've heard some feedback of we'd like to have more detail there. So we'd love to know if that's an interest of yours. And then finally, improved calendar integration. This could be something like maybe you have a you have a shared organization calendar that you'd really like for everything to just be synced between that and OnBoard. It could absolutely be at the user level, better integration, so that when a meeting's created, that's automatically showing up on your calendar. When that meeting gets updated, that update automatically hits your calendar. So we think there's some improvements that can be made there. And again, that's sort of looking at what's happening in other industries and how they're using calendar integration. So those are the 5. Like I said, we're going to pop up a poll. We would love for you to pick the 2 items out of that 5 that you would rank sort of 1 and 2. And like I said, if you think there's something on there, or if you'd like to see something on there that's missing, feel free to throw that into the chat window and we'll capture that as well.
I won't lie, I'm really excited about where this poll is going to take us.
And then I think I ran a little long, so thanks for being patient with me. We're going to wrap up the content pretty quickly and then give you a chance to do a little Q&A. But before we do that, and we'll give maybe another 15 seconds or so, Jillian, for the poll. Before we sort of finish the content, though, I do want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, sort of longer term. What's the vision that we've got? What are we thinking is important a little bit longer term? And again, this is sort of kind of hot off the presses, if you will. We've been sharing this with some sort of key stakeholders. Great, thank you for the poll results. Super helpful to see that. I'll be anxious to dig into that in more detail, but looks like a lot of interest in the meeting minute builder, which is not surprising to us. That's what we've been hearing from the CS team. I am maybe a little surprised by the scheduler solution. So that's really interesting. That's great. Thank you. What I was saying is I want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into where we're headed. And this might be one of those things where that's probably me highlighting.
Well, sorry about that. I think Doug and I were fighting over the screen for a moment. This is what happens when you're not in the same room.
I think one of our kids got into the Zoom somehow. So hey, this area, this is generally, as we're thinking about vision, we think that meetings and boards are sort of stuck in time without a lot of transformation happening in the digital space. So we've taken what was done on paper traditionally and we've moved that into the digital space. But there hasn't been a lot of transformation from a digital perspective. Like what can we do to really optimize the processes and automate some things that are having to be done manually? And so we think data-driven meetings are the future, or data-enabled meetings. So that's sort of big picture, the vision that we have moving forward. And this is an area where, for some of you, this may not resonate at all, and you might say, that doesn't make sense to me at all. And I would love to hear that. For others, they might say, this does make a lot of sense, and I really like what you've done with analytics already, and I would love to talk to you about that. And I'd love for you to let us know that as well. Feedback here, positive and negative is what we really want to be able to kind of fine tune this. So the first one is engagement analytics. This hopefully looks familiar. This is what we rolled out in the fall. And this is some of the feedback we've gotten on this is it's a little bit too high level. People would like to be able to drill in this and sort of actually know sort of who viewed the book and who didn't view the book. Right now it's anonymized. And I'm gonna go pretty quickly here. If I can figure, there we go. The second is just building out better profiles. So this would be the 4 members of your organization that are using OnBoard, building out their profiles so that we have some knowledge of where do they have specific skills, where do they have specific expertise, and then being able to build out like a board skills matrix, for example, so that you can see as you're planning for your board members, maybe someone's leaving the board, someone you need to go recruit another board member, helping you to make better decisions around where do you have potentially gaps from a skill perspective and you need to fill those. And then meeting analytics, sort of, let's call it version 2, we start to get a lot more detailed. So for example, you'll notice up under kind of onboard insights, sort of left middle, this insights is giving you perspective on sort of how much of your time do you spend sort of on updates, things that are in the past versus things that are in the future. What's the mix of your meeting look like in that way? Under the agenda analysis, what are the specific areas that you spend the most time on? Are you spending a lot of time on investment decisions? Are you spending a lot of time around strategy? So being able to give you some analysis of that. And then below that, industry metrics, potentially even being able to, as we have the data, being able to kind of give you an analysis of, for other people in your particular industry, this is how you match up. So if your meeting length is double the amount of other people in the industry, that may be something you want to know and sort of decide if there's something you could be doing different there. And then finally is what we call meeting briefs. So this is a new email that we're about to launch in beta. And the idea here, without going into a lot of detail, the idea here is as you're preparing for a meeting, we want to be able to, let's say that the meeting was published on a Monday, and you went in and looked at everything on Tuesday, and you were 100% ready for the meeting. And then on Wednesday, someone went in and made some changes to the board book. This email is going to let you know that. You're going to be able to see under preparation progress how much of the material you've covered, and then any changes since your last review, so that you know whether or not you need to hop back in and take a look at that information before the meeting actually happens. We're calling these meeting briefs. We are going to release this in beta. We want to get a lot of feedback on this before we launch it to everyone. And we have one final poll, and then we're going to go into a quick wrap up and Q&A. And the poll is, would you be interested in participating in the beta program? This is turned on for your organization, and then you have a control at the meeting level to turn it off if you have a particular meeting where you don't want people to get this. And it is per meeting, so they would get this email leading up, and they get an initial email about the meeting, and then they'll get one email 3 days before the meeting that gives them that status of, are they up to date or not? Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sticking with us here. I hope this has been helpful. Poll results are looking fantastic. Love to see 17 people that are interested in this email. We'll be reaching out and getting that turned on for you. I'm going to stop sharing here and turn things back over to Jillian to wrap up.
All right. Let me see if I can take it back. Here we go. Hey, Doug, thank you and Mick so much for joining us today. It's always helpful to understand the process and why everyone's input is so important. I want to take a minute to summarize your points to our attendees to make sure that everyone got those takeaways. One, we wanted to make sure that all of you knew, our attendees knew, how important your feedback is. And enhancement ideas are to making OnBoard the best in the market. And we wanted you to be assured that they don't fall into the abyss. So thank you, Doug and Mick, for kind of going over that. Number two, how to submit ideas. So of course, we always like to say, please tell your CSM. Everyone should have one. Reach out if you're not quite sure who yours is. And the other way is you can simply email help@passageways.com. So while we'd always love you to tell us first, if you just have a quick idea and you want to shoot an email, we will follow up with that as well. And then 3, that you're excited about some of the features coming down the road. So Tasks is really exciting. Minute Builder, really exciting. As a CSM, that is something that I know a lot of my customers, and I work specifically in the nonprofit space, are very excited about. So hopefully you guys are excited about that as well. So now that we know the why and the how and the what for features, we're always looking for those of you interested in giving that hands-on feedback. So thank you so much for signing up and saying if you would be a tester or not for us. So thank you so much. We will follow up. We have all those names. We'll pull that report after this. So what we've really been waiting for is the Q&A. So I know that some of you have some of those burning questions. I know chat has been on fire. Thank you, Gabe, so much for answering some of those. So if you do have extra questions that you'd like to follow up with, drop those questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to answer some of those live. So thank you again. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope you stick around for a couple questions. And let's see what we've got going. So let's see, I'm going to answer this question live because I see it first. Let's see, I can answer this one. Doug and Mick, you're off the hook. So when Tasks launch, when that launch is, will we get a cheat sheet on how to use it? Absolutely. We will make it, it'll, of course, because it's onboard, be incredibly intuitive as it is, but the CX team and implementation and the help desk is definitely going to be here to help, to give you those cheat sheets and those little nuggets and some best practices on how to use that as well. So we're excited, and hopefully you will be excited too.
Hey, Jillian, I'll just mention real quick, we also are updating the guides that pop up in the application to help users that maybe just need a refresher on things, or maybe users that are newer to the solution. And we've also updated our just general sort of training documentation to make that a little easier to find and consume. So just a heads up on those.
Wonderful. Let's see, another task question, this one from Jean. Let's see, very interested in task management. Lots of questions will come up. 1, could she assign tasks to people who are not on the onboard directory? That is a great question. Fellas?
You will, if I understand the question, you will have to have, a user will have to be in onboard enabled, and for you to be able to assign it to them. So if for example, if Jillian was not an onboard user, I would not be able to assign a task to her. But if she is an onboard user, it doesn't matter sort of what committees or groups she's in, I would be able to make an assignment there.
Awesome. Let's see. From Amy, is there a possibility to develop a survey that has many sections? We currently have a survey for a committee and had to create 6 different surveys. It would be great to have one survey with the separate sections.
I'm not sure if I completely understand that one. And so maybe Jillian, unless somebody else has an answer on that, maybe we could follow up on that one specifically. It actually sounds similar to a conversation I had with a customer just a couple of weeks ago. So I think if it is the same, I think the shorter answer is I don't think you can do that today, but it sounds like something that we probably need to take a look at. But maybe we take that and follow up offline. Okay,
perfect. Amy, one of us will get back to you. Awesome. Let's see. How do we access engagement analytics? Anonymous. It all depends on the package that we have within onboard, and we can have your CSM follow up with you for that as well. If you don't have access to it, you can always hit that little button and we can follow up to give you more information if you'd like to learn a little bit more.
And you'll see it at the meeting level. So if you go into one of your meetings, you'll see the analytics there. We'll show you a little preview of it if you don't actually have access to it today through your current packaging. So you'll see the preview, and then, like Jillian said, you could reach out for more information. And if you do have it in a package, you'll actually see the analytics populate there.
Awesome. Okay, we have time for one more question. I'm checking chat and Q&A to make sure. Let's see. We're fine. I want to make sure that there's one that our VPs can answer. Let's see. That is about surveys. Let's see. We have more than one admin for OnBoard. Could you somehow add a date added to items that are uploaded so that we know when they have been added and which document is most current?
I'm gonna let Mick take that one. That's a perfect Mick question.
Yeah, that's it's not there today, but that is something that can be added. Yes.
Awesome. Well,
that one's straightforward.
Awesome. Well, I love ending on a positive yes for a customer. So we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming to another OnBoard webinar for the CX team. And thank you, Mick and Doug, for joining us today, taking time out of your schedules at home for joining us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Yeah. Awesome. So thanks,
great.
everyone, again. We'll pull some reports from this. We'll download everyone's question and make sure that we can follow up. If we have missed anything today, please reach out to your CSM and we can get those questions answered. I know that due to time, we can't get to everything, but we'll get you an answer either way. Everyone have a really great day. Thank you so much for joining.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.